As a kid, I was really, really afraid of stuff. And in making horror movies, I get to explore fear and also control it. Hi, I'm Robert Eggers, and this is the origin story of Nosferatu. When I was about 8 or 9, with the help of my mom, we acquired a VHS of Nosferatu. And I was just really struck by how this version distilled the Dracula story into a very simple fairy tale. The past really speaks to me. So it's most interesting for me to think about who we are and where we're going from where we came from. When I was in high school, I had the idea of doing Nosferatu as a stage play that would be a silent film on stage with black and white makeup, black and white costumes, and super titles. And I thought maybe it was a silly idea, but my friend Ashley Kelly Tata said, no, that's a cool idea. So we directed it together, and it cemented the fact that I wanted to be a director when I grew up. With your first feature, you have all these ideas about the movies you've wanted to make that have been brewing and growing with you, and then they all come out in your first feature, which becomes like very personal because of that, even if you're still finding your footing and finding your voice. But because Nosferatu's been with me for so long, this is arguably as personal because I've been working on this film for 10 years or more.
They're not building sets, they're building like a world. There's something very painting-like about it, and something also very authentic to the time period. It feels like a time capsule in every single way.
They just simply don't look like sets. The act of research is something that I truly just enjoy. The finishes are so realistic that people aren't going to think that we shot them on builds. They're going to think we went to locations.
The people that built this thing, I'm just very, very, very impressed by them. I don't know how they did it. You can use any angle on this set. You can go and do close-ups on every single detail.
This has some of the coolest props.
If you were to look at the paperwork on the tables, it's all had a calligrapher writing things based on things we found, paintings, furniture, every tiny detail to every large detail was researched and sourced.
You could take a microscope to any of these sets and every single thing is so authentic, so beautiful, so thought out, down to all of these little things that you might not even see in certain shots, but that just add to the feeling that you are inside of something so real.
Once you dress it up with the extras and you get the action going, it comes alive.
The fake dead animals that looked so real, and the people and the prosthetics that were on the people that were dying on the street, everything just felt like I was inside the scariest painting ever made.
When we were doing the work in rural Transylvania, and especially with the Roma community, it was much more difficult because there are a lot less images. We have tons and tons of photographs of this stuff from slightly later, but we have to kind of piece together what could be this earlier version.
I was able to go to a couple of the outdoor historic museums. It was great to actually see these buildings that they had gathered from all over the country and rebuilt them in one spot.
He is going to be a dead Transylvanian nobleman, and Bill has a very boyish face. I had done actually a lot of sketches and some digital paintings.
Robert had a very particular vision for Orlok. The references that I got to look at were these sort of occultist warlords during that time in that place.
It's a different look than we've seen of any vampire character.
Doing something that acknowledged the folk vampire and is dressed the way a Transylvanian nobleman would have been dressed.
In one interview, Eggers discusses how he drew on primary sources from the era for his dialogue. One specific example being the diaries of John Winthrop, the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The which sometimes features direct quotation from the sources in the dialogue. Notably, when the boy Caleb is possessed, the words he speaks are verbatim from 17th century reports of child possession. The Lighthouse, Eggers' second film, again takes place in a very specific time and place, and the language of the film reflects this.
In the kitchen shanty cooks. It was fried donuts 3
You're
times a
drunk.
day.
You're
Crunchy
drunk.
hand bigger than
You're
your
drunk.
mouth.
I'm drunk.
I'm
me.
be drunk.
Get me.
Drunk since I first laid eyes on you.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
The dialogue is infused with sailing jargon as well as the New England vernacular of the time. Again, it's exactly what you'd expect from a director keen on historical accuracy. The cadences of the character's speech are drawn from works like the writing of the novelist Sarah Orne Jewett, whose work captures the dialect of coastal Maine residents in the 19th century in the same way that William Faulkner would later record the regional dialects of Mississippi.